start. We have main engine start. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff. Liftoff of the space.
In our natural pursuit of knowledge, space has always mystified and beguiled us. Over the past 5 decades, we've pushed the final frontier inevitably onward into the ether. The cost has been colossal. Now every day, new data, new conclusions, and the thirst for deeper exploration propel us inexorably onward. The advantages of the discoveries made through space travel are myriad, but the fundamental curiosity as to what is out there will always fascinate and taunt us. Come with us now into the unknown and discover the disappearing frontier. Coming up in this edition, the process of research and technological improvements can sometimes be found not by looking forward but by looking back. Back to propellers is a prime example. Today's feature continues the story of the flight of Friendship 7, piloted by John Glenn. It was the first American manned spacecraft to orbit the Earth. Broadcast and monitored around the world, it was the first major space event. The language and style of this feature was to set the tone for the great space adventures yet to come. And over the years, NASA technology has been brought from space to Earth and incorporated into many everyday designs and product developments, from running shoes to Velcro, from protective paint to eye tests. Jetliners have become the standard in modern air travel, and fueling these jets is one of the commercial airlines' greatest expenses, comprising as much as a third of their direct operating costs. Is there a better way? What about a new look at an old technology? Well, that is exactly what NASA did. It reinvented the propeller. The people at Lewis Research Center started reworking the propeller design back in the time of the early 70s oil crisis. The idea was that aircraft powered by new generation propellers would burn 50 to 60% less fuel than the current commercial jets. The design that emerged features 8 thin curved swept-back blades and is called the prop fan. 50 hours of ground tests were performed on the prop fan in San Diego. The next step was to get it on an aircraft, and that's exactly what happened at the Lockheed Corporation in Marietta. The 9-foot diameter prop fan was mounted on the left wing of a Gulfstream II business jet. 611 sensors, including 100 microphones, were placed on the blades and other parts of the aircraft to help engineers monitor its performance. The unique blade design was the key to achieving speeds and altitudes comparable to jets on roughly half the fuel. Although it has the potential to save the airline industry billions of dollars in fuel costs, it must first pass the test of public approval. Propeller-driven aircraft have traditionally been very noisy, so two of the greatest concerns in the prop fan project were to minimize noise levels on the ground and to create a passenger cabin as quiet as a jet's. Fortunately, neither concern was able to deter the public, and the first commercial use of prop jets began in the late 80s. Advanced propeller research, reworking an old concept to make air travel more fuel efficient for today's frequent flyers. While the world watches and waits, we catch up with Lieutenant Colonel John Glenn of the United States Marines in Friendship 7, the Americans' historic first manned orbital spaceflight. The year is 1962. The Mercury Atlas stands alone, waiting to depart this Earth. 250,000 pounds of rocket with thrust equal to 3.5 million horsepower, all to hurtle a 168-pound astronaut into space.
beacons are on. Start interrogation in 1 minute.
The countdown creeps closer to the moment of flight, and recovery teams at Cape Canaveral and around the world ready themselves to come to the aid of the astronaut. Above all else, John Glenn's safety is paramount, dictating all other planning. Never in all of history have so many people shared, without censorship, an adventure of such magnitude. Through all news media, in all languages, all the people of the world have the chance to be witness to this exploration of space, to its success or failure. The time nears, and soon this Earth pass indicator in the capsule will start showing John Glenn his changing positions above the world. This is the sound of John Glenn's heartbeat as monitored by telemetry to mission control. Slow and steady as we hope it will be heard throughout the flight. And now the countdown begins in earnest. SECO, or Sustainer Engine Cutoff, the moment when the final Atlas engine will shut down when Friendship 7 should separate from the booster rockets and begin orbital flight.
Good Lord, ride all the way. Godspeed, John Glenn. 10,
Godspeed, John Glenn.
7, clock is started. Fuel 102, 101, oxygen 78, 100, amp 27. Roger, loud and clear, flight path is good, 69.
Glenn reports that everything's in good shape. All systems are go.
Plasma grades fired, okay. Roger, 0J, and I feel fine. Capsule is turning around.
Glenn reports that the capsule is turning around and that he feels fine. For John Glenn, alone in Friendship 7, the long and awesome panorama of the world curving beneath him is revealed for the first time.
100 yards behind me. It was beautiful.
He reports that he can see the booster just behind him a couple of hundred yards, and the view is beautiful.
Roger, 7. You have a go. At least 7 orbits. Roger. Understand, go for at least 7 orbits.
Glenn is told that he has go for at least 7 orbits.
Big cloud pattern way back across toward the Cape. Beautiful sight. Roger, still reading you loud and clear. Next transmission, Bermuda. Roger, understand. Next transmission, Bermuda.
Next transmission is Bermuda, the first station along the way.
Friendship 7, Bermuda Hatcha. Roger, Bermuda, stand by. This is Friendship 7, fuel 103, 101, oxygen 78 to 100. This is very comfortable at 0G. I have...
Glenn says that it's very comfortable, he has nothing but a fine feeling, and that everything's good.
Very good. Roger, Friendship 7. Friendship 7, you are sailing rapidly.
After passing the station in Canal, Nigeria, Friendship 7 races above Africa at 17,545 miles per hour, 300 miles a minute, 4 miles for every heartbeat of John Glenn. Friendship 7 streaks through the night of tomorrow and races toward the dawn of yesterday. Above the Indian Ocean flashes Friendship 7 far from human sight, seen only by the electronic sensors of the coastal sentry as she records the lightning passage of the man in space. For John Glenn, the familiar time references of Earth no longer apply, for he journeys around our world in just 88 minutes.
Friendship 7, Friendship 7, this is Boucher Contact. Friendship 7, this is Boucher Contact. Siri, over. Hello, Boucher Contact. This is Friendship 7, reading you loud and clear. How me? Roger, Friendship 7, Boucher Capcom. How me, over. Roger, how you doing, Gordo? We're doing real fine up here. Everything is going very well, over. Very good, John. You sound good.
Glenn reports once more that he's doing very, very well.
Time passes rapidly, huh? Yes, sir.
Friendship 7 is right on target as it continues in its first Earth orbit. As you can see from this map, Friendship 7's course has been precisely laid out, with each orbit taking a slightly different course based on calculations made in the months leading up to this moment. Further west, Weymouth has lost contact as Friendship 7 darts home back to its place of launching, back to Cape Canaveral, and still it races. All systems are go in the capsule. Glenn reports that he sees particles floating around the capsule that he can't identify. He declares them to be very small, maybe less than a 1/16 of an inch. They pass by the window and Glenn says he can see them against the dark sky. There are literally thousands of them looking like stars. Friendship 7 is right on target as it continues in its first Earth orbit. As you can see from this map, Friendship 7's course has been precisely laid out, with each orbit taking a slightly different course based on calculations made in the months leading up to this moment. And then there's minor trouble aboard Friendship 7. A malfunction of the automatic control system is causing the spacecraft to yaw in skid-like fashion away from its proper flight attitude. But Glenn is overriding the malfunction and is now controlling Friendship 7 manually on fly-by-wire, directing its movements by hand control, much like a pilot. As Friendship 7 continues, it's tracked by the Mercury network and in constant contact with control. They monitor the instruments for more information about the malfunction.
Fly-by-wire at present time. Understand? Friendship 7, this is Kano Capcom standing by. Hello, Kano. Friendship 7, we have telemetry solid and check all your systems out okay. We will remind you to start pre-dark side checklist as soon as you lose contact with us. Hello, Friendship 7. Friendship 7, Friendship 7, this is Boucher Contact. Friendship 7, this is Boucher Contact. Do read, over. Okay, this is Friendship 7 to me. Your Friendship 7, Boucher Capcom. Will you confirm that your landing bag switch is in the off position? Over.
In the exchanges between Control and John Glenn, everything is in the affirmative. As the ground technicians continue to monitor their instruments, the first sign of disaster may be about to appear. It comes as astronaut Cooper relays a request from Mercury Control asking Glenn to check the status lights for the Capital Impact landing bag. Glenn reports that it's normal, but ground control is now receiving an ominous warning signal, an indication that the heat shield on Friendship 7 seems to have come loose. Friendship 7 is cleared for its third orbit, but at Cape Canaveral, a decision must be made, and soon. The signal pulsing down from Friendship 7 continues to indicate that the heat shield is loose. Is this the case? They have no way of telling. But if it's true, then John Glenn and Friendship 7 could perish in a searing inferno when he plunges back into the atmosphere. The retro rockets that slow the spacecraft and head it back to Earth are strapped over the heat shield. If they're left on after retro fire instead of being jettisoned as in normal re-entry, then their straps might hold the shield in place before they burn off. They might possibly save Glenn from the 3,000 degrees of re-entry heat until he's deep enough into the atmosphere for its force to hold the shield in place. As Glenn streaks toward the United States, the decision must be made soon so he can begin the retro sequence as planned. Otherwise, he will miss the planned recovery area, or worse. The atmosphere at ground control is tense. The future of space exploration and the well-being of John Glenn is about to be decided. Which is the correct decision? We will return next week for the final installment in the story of John Glenn and the flight of Friendship 7. A protective paint used on the Statue of Liberty, a tiny laser that unclogs arteries, and for the physically impaired, a vehicle control system based on the lunar rovers. These are just a few of the many products based on NASA technology. In today's Disappearing Frontier, we look at just two. This eye testing device in use here at a kindergarten in America has been developed by the Medical Sciences Corporation in Alabama. Called the Ocular Screening System, it's based on technology used by NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center to analyze pictures of the sun and other celestial objects taken during Skylab missions in the early 1970s. Ocular screening provides a simple, reliable way to detect eye problems in young children. The pictures produced by the system look like this. A totally red eye is healthy. White crescents or other variations indicate problems. 8 to 10% of the first children tested were found to have serious eye diseases or abnormalities. With children, it's often hard to get reliable answers, but with this technology, even infants can focus on the camera and the photographs will display any defects which might be there with painlessly little involvement from the child. Another area where NASA technology is having an impact, or perhaps we should say absorbing impact, is in the development of a new style of running shoe. Running's popularity just continues to grow, and the constant pounding can be brutal on the lower body and feet. To help soften the blow, the Kangaroo Shoe Company of St. Louis developed the first running shoe that incorporated a material similar to one that was used in NASA's moonwalk.
My golly, this time goes fast.
Called Dynacoil, this springy fibrous material is filled with polyurethane and is placed in the midsole of the shoe. Dr. Joseph Hamill, assistant professor and director of biomechanics at the University of Massachusetts, specializes in testing running shoes. According to Dr. Hamill, Dynacoil not only absorbs shock very well, it also helps to control side-to-side movement. The high-speed video systems he uses in his labs help to illustrate this point. When we run, our feet don't just hit the ground and bounce straight back up. They hit, roll over from outside to in, then come back up again. This is called pronation. If a foot overpronates, injury can occur, and until these tests, no shoe had ever controlled this motion so well. Finding new uses for new technology, just two examples of bringing NASA's space technology down to Earth. That brings us to the end of this edition. We look forward to your company next time. But remember, we are out there. What we can and can't see is out there. And the mysteries between us, although seemingly insurmountable, are encompassed by a disappearing frontier.